Happy fall, everybody. It is Joe Morrison, 49SAF Pod, coming to you from the 8th floor of City Hall, where we're laughing about various matters of finance as we head towards 6 p.m. Beautiful weather outside, cold, crisp fall Alaska days, golden leaves on the trees. In case you're not from up here, we don't have a lot of reds. And at any moment, a windstorm can come through and knock most of those leaves down. At any rate, we're talking with Pandere Shoes today. They're a startup based out of Alaska. They're an award-winning startup, another Alaska National Award-winning startup. They won Kauffman Foundation's 1 million cups on a national level, I think, in 2016. And their startup is all about creating shoes for people who suffer from lower limb swelling. Pandere is either the Greek or Latin word for stretch, and a lot of people worldwide suffer from lower limb swelling, and they're trying to create a shoe that is beautiful and health-oriented for those people. We cover at least three things that I'm really interested in. 14 minutes in or so, we talk about business plan competitions and how they can help fund your company at an early stage. About 20 minutes in, we talk about the rainforest, and this is an idea from entrepreneurial thinker Victor Wong of the Kauffman Foundation, which is that early-stage companies, things of value, sprout up. And they sprout up because they're nurtured in a rich environment like a rainforest, not necessarily a system like a farm. And then finally, there's a startup CFO who's on the podcast, and we talk about the value of startup financial projections at about 24 minutes in. So at any rate, that's what we're going to do. And without further ado, let's go to Pandere Shoes. Anyway, don't know that that's going to make it into the cast. We'll see. I don't know if Dad listens to this. Celia, tell me about what you do on the team.
So I do a lot of our finance stuff. I do spreadsheet modeling. I do all of our social media and marketing. I run our Instagram feed. I respond to all our Facebook messages.
Why do you think that's important, or why do you identify that way?
So I think that one of the really interesting things about Pandere and people that have lower limb swelling conditions is they sort of feel really marginalized. So they've really found sort of their own groups online through Instagram and through Facebook. And so they're really very protective of each other and of the groups that they're in. So they're really not into letting companies be a part of their group. And so it's been kind of a fun thing to sort of be like, no, we are part of your group. Laura has a thing that, is part of the group. And we promise we're not an evil company. We promise we're a really cool company. And please let us come and hang out with you. And so I think it's really a lot of that kind of stuff that's been kind of a fun ride to be able to do.
All right. So somebody has to tell me the origin story of your company. How did you begin?
Ayla's leaning in.
Oh boy, I'm leaning in. Here we go. I'll tell it from my perspective because this is my favorite part of our story. All three of us just so happen to find ourselves at an Anchorage startup weekend in January of 2016. And that year I was one of the organizers and volunteering. And Laura made a presentation about a company idea for a segment of the population who had trouble finding shoes. And if anyone's ever been to a startup weekend, a lot of times it is geared around tech and energy. I think that of the 4 startup weekends I had been to, this had been the first shoe company I had heard. And she just kept after Celia and I. It was incredible. She was so tenacious. She knew there was a big problem. And I wasn't a cobbler. I had no idea what the real issues were until I started sitting down and helping her with her presentation. Just turns out that 18 months later, Celia and I are honored to be a member of the company, and Pandere Shoes won that startup weekend. So,
well, this is Laura. The startup weekend only had one rule that I can remember, and that one rule was you cannot be a team of one. Mm-hmm. And because my idea had gotten past the first filter, so it got into the group of ideas that were going to actually be worked on. But then I was I was watching this idea go down the drain because there wasn't anybody to work on it with me. I couldn't convince anybody to work on it with me. That's why I was persistent.
So you met at Startup Weekend. Tell me about your presentation during Startup Weekend, and then after Startup Weekend, what happened next?
You to go? You want to go?
The presentation, as I remember, was just, trial by fire, as most presentations at Startup Weekend are. We were able to get, when the three of us get into a room, magic happens, and I think a lot of great ideas come out of that. I think each of us brings certain skill sets for research and for execution, and we all, while we may not agree all the time, we really appreciate our disagreements. So,
I think, this is Celia, I think, so one of the things that was really great about Startup Weekend was Laura had sort of said, Laura and I have worked together in like the professional world, and she said, well, you work with spreadsheets and you know how to make a spreadsheet do really interesting things and look really pretty. You should come and do this thing. I've got this idea. I kind of don't know if I want to, pursue it. Like, I don't think it's the right time. I kind of just want to see if somebody's got I kind of just want to see if somebody else thinks it's worthwhile. And we got into Startup Weekend, and I think even from then it was really apparent that the three of us really balance each other out. So where Laura and I would be like, oh, I don't want to do this activity. This sounds really frustrating, or I don't see the point in doing this. Ayla would be like, no, this is a really great idea, and here's why, and let me explain it to you. Or, where Ayla and I would be like, Laura, that's such an old school thought. Like, here's this new school idea. I think it became really apparent from there how dynamic we are together. So I think that's been kind of a cool.
Well, and we won the competition,
Yeah.
which caused us to look at each other at the end of the contest and say, okay, where do we go from here? So we thought, let's give it 6 months and see what things look like in 6 months, and in 6 months we'll be able to know whether this is a worthy idea of pursuing. So that's kind of how it all started.
Well, okay, it started that way, but then 6 months goes by. So what happens 6 months after Startup Weekend?
Somebody's going to remember.
Oh, I know what happened.
Okay,
we got her, but that's what happened.
That's what happened.
We found a shoe consultant that could help us because we didn't know anything about shoes at all. So we just started trying to find somebody who could help us learn how to make shoes. And we found this really important consultant that was able to provide very important connections. So he connected us to a manufacturer in Asia. He connected us to an internationally renowned designer. Anyway, that got the ball off the ground. And maybe about 8 months in, we had a series of shoe designs that we thought could actually go forward. And from there, we went on to pursue these other contests. So we've been pretty good at getting contest money.
I think the thing that was interesting is it was sort of, well, let's see if this works. And after 6 months, if it's a good idea, we'll keep doing it. And then 6 months went, and we'd made a lot of really great progress. And then it was sort of, well, let's see if we can find a little bit of startup money for it, so we don't have to put in a bunch of our own cash to sort of fund this thing. And then that happened, and we kept doing these things, and at every time we were sort of like, well, if this is the off-ramp, this is the off-ramp. And there kept never being a reason to get off the highway. And there seemed to be more and more reasons, to keep going and to put your foot on the gas. So, I think that's still true even now.
Yeah.
So you get an international shoe consultant, designs happen. Tell me about the contests you've won. Tell me about all the renown and all the contests you've won, guys.
Well, I'll go. So we've been in a part of multiple contests. I would say the biggest win we had was the National 1 in a Million competition that was hosted by the Kauffman Foundation last year, and that was a pretty incredible journey. Simply because we were competing with people, across the nation who had much bigger networks than we did, because the last two parts of that competition were not based on your presentation or your business plan. They were based on people voting online.
First part.
First part, yeah. They were based on people voting for you, and looking at some of our competitors who had thousands of people in their network. We were just amazed and so excited for our following as they helped us through this process.
Tell them about the Arctic Innovations.
Arctic Innovations.
Yeah.
So we had been cooking along with this sort of do a little video, put it online. If you make it to the next stage, you have to get so many people to click on your video. And then, so while we're sort of getting all of that together, there was the opportunity to go up to Fairbanks and to pitch at Arctic Innovations. And so it was sort of like everything happening all at once. Produce videos, make sure the scripts are correct, work on an in-person pitch, make sure you have everything you need to drive up to Fairbanks in October. And so we went and we got the student prize. We got a third overall, and we got a kicker. So we got almost the equivalent of what we had won if we had won first place, which was pretty cool.
And all of us got the opportunity to present. I remember that weekend I was deadly ill with a stomach flu, but we still presented and we still won despite that, thanks to my wonderful partners, because I don't remember any of it.
I forgot about that.
It was bad.
And then after that, we won a couple more contests that are local. We won the Alaska Seed Fund.
Mm-hmm.
We got some Alaska Seed Fund money, and then we placed in the Alaska Business Planning Competition back in April.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would say, if anybody is listening that is interested in startups, I can say from our experience that these contests have been really crucial launches forward for us, because even if we didn't win or didn't make it to the next place, just the preparing for the contest was so incredibly valuable. And it helped us work through a bunch of our gaps and deficiencies. So the contests were great for us, even if we didn't get in it.
So tell me where you are now. Well, so you've won Startup Weekend 2016. You've won 1 million cups nationally for the Kauffman Foundation. You placed in the Alaska Innovation or Arctic Innovation competition. You placed in the Alaska Business Plan competition, and you won Innovate Her, right? Or am I making that up?
No, we did. Well, the Alaska regional round.
So you've won oodles of awards and hopefully slightly less oodles of prize money. I know the prize money helps, but it's really not enough, right?
Right, it's never enough.
Right. And you won the Alaska Seed Fund. So you won all these awards. Where are you now with your product life cycle?
Do you want me to go?
You want to talk about it?
So we've recently partnered with a new person on the East Coast that is connecting us with. We had a really major pivot this summer. Mm-hmm. We had spent all of our energy focusing on building a prototype out of Taiwan. We did basically 5 prototypes, and at the end of all that, we weren't satisfied, and we got some new expertise at the table. And now we're pivoting toward Mexico, where there's a huge shoe manufacturing industry. And the quality is great, and you eliminate about 2/3 of your shipping time. So it looks very, very promising. We're kind of at the early middle stages of making that next round of prototypes. So we're basically at round 6.
And I'll just jump in here. I think one of the most important things that we did in the last 3 months is we got the right people on the bus. Mm-hmm. We found the next mentor/advisor who can take us to a point of launch, and that is what he has helped us do. It's finding the people that have the connections you need and that have the desire to help you. And it's been an incredible journey. I think that's what we've been really trying to do the last probably 12 to 16 months, and we're just excited. We're at the point where we feel we have the right people to make this thing actually happen.
So a big adage, I don't I'm an ex-English major and I don't know how to say it. A big adage is talk to your customers, talk to your customers, talk to your customers. You've talked to them. What are they saying? What product do they want you to build for them? And I think Celia has something to say.
Yeah. We talk to them all the time. That sort of feels like every company should do that, but we've done some surveys. We solicit advice through a couple Facebook groups. We have the really great advantage of one of our founders also being somebody who's a customer, and that Laura can really easily look at a proposed design and say, that is not going to work, and here's why. And you can have a really great direct conversation with the designer around immediate feedback around why something will or won't work. I think we did over 1,000 data points. 100, how many?
Yeah.
Over 1,000.
It's more than that. It's more like 1,000 surveys.
Right, 1,000
with
surveys.
probably 40 questions.
Right. So we've done a ton of survey work on where on your foot does your foot swell? Where on your foot do you have foot problems? Is it the front? Is it the sides? Is it the top? Is it the back? Is it around the ankle? So we've done a ton of like that kind of quantitative data. We've done a ton of qualitative work. Ayla looks at Facebook all the time and comments on people's photos, and you sort of save photo. There's like a whole folder on my computer that's just photos of people's feet, and you're like, oh, that's really weird. Look, her foot is swollen more here than this other person who posted 3 days ago, and they're wearing sandals. And why? What's going on there?
That's a strange hobby, Celia.
It is a good hobby to have if you own a shoe company, though. So.
Well put. Let's talk a little bit about your advisors. How many advisors do you have on your company? Do you have an advisory board? And how many advisors do you have? Let's start there.
Well, let's talk about the free advisors that we have. I mean, honestly, our biggest source of advice right now is this amazing new budding entrepreneurship community in Alaska. And, I've lived in Alaska for 23 years. I've been doing entrepreneurial things since my very early 20s. Some of them don't look like businesses because they end up looking more like nonprofit projects. But really, at the end of the day, they sort of boil down to the same thing. And I never have experienced anything like what we have right now in terms of community support. So Celia and I are both devotees of the Rainforest book, Victor Huang's book, and I feel like our community here is really shaping up in that direction. And so we have a lot of advice and mentors here. If that's a way to answer,
No, that's a great way to answer. And do you want to talk a little bit about? I'll bring you back in, and then you guys can chime in. Talk a little bit about the rainforest and what it means, because I don't think our audience knows that.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to go? Laura and I are going to fight over the microphone over this one.
I guess, for me, the rainforest and that whole philosophy of how to move e-ship, entrepreneurship forward, and the concept of the rainforest is very much in alignment with all of the things that have brought me to this point. So for me, it's really about connecting community, connecting siloed entities, and learning how to lower transactional costs so that everyone can do better. Celia is going to have a much better explanation, but for me, the main thing is how conveniently and productively the rainforest concepts connect community.
But what does this mean? What is this rainforest thing, Celia? Help me out.
The rainforest is all around you. You're probably already in it. It's probably already in you. It's kind of like the Matrix, like that, where you've always been in it. I think the thing that's great about the book is it gives you a set of language, tools, and concepts and a way to sort of label the things you already see. So you talk about where do you meet entrepreneurs. Here we've got a really great 1 million cups scene. There's the boardroom, which is a really wonderful place to connect with people. And the rainforest talks about how you define that concept and build on it. And how do you know the people that everybody knows in the community, sort of Kai Hollands, Lance's in the community, where you can't start a business without coming into contact with a few of these people here. I'm going to get in real trouble because I'm totally going to forget like a bunch of them, but Catherine at the boardroom. So it gives you a way to talk about the things that you see a lot of, and a way to sort of codify the world the entrepreneurship world around you. So gives you concepts like a keystone species, which is somebody that knows everybody and is really willing to connect with other people and willing to say, hey, you should really talk to this person. Let me send an email. Let me invite you. Hey, we should go out to coffee because I really want to talk to you about what you're doing. Hey, I know somebody that can do that thing that you need for very little money or no money, or sort of an exchange of ideas, or breaking down those transactional costs and taking them from exchanging money for goods and services to something that's sort of like, I'm really interested in this concept and I want to do it because I think it's a cool idea. And how do you build that kind of infrastructure in a city?
Okay, so here we are, Pandere Shoes. Transactional costs are decreasing, awards being won. You're headed with rapid abandon toward your product. Your customers are telling you all kinds of things. And side note, we should go back to what lymphedema is, I think. But I want to ask a question of Celia again. So you're our CFO here in the company. Mm-hmm. How many years of financial projections did you do?
All of them. All of them. It
Did you go out? Did you go out past 5?
We've done. I think we did. Did we do one that was like that? So we're working on it. So I don't, at this stage in the company, with all of the variables we have kicking around and the pivots we've done, I don't necessarily see the value in doing a 7 or 10 year projection, because I don't see.
Right, because we're going to make it up beginning in year 1.5 or 2.
Right. I think being an entrepreneur is sometimes like building a plane while you're flying it without an instruction manual. And, it'd be really great if the financial projections functioned like an instruction manual, but I think they sort of function like an instruction manual for a race car when what you're building is an airplane. So I don't necessarily find giant long-term projections to be super valuable.
But I get to ask questions. We don't usually get startup CFOs in here, so you're not off the hook. All right, so let's start with market size. What's the market size?
I'm glad you asked. So we started off by looking at some data and some research around women that survive cancers, and we did some sort of voodoo math and slicing and dicing around how many of those people are likely to develop lymphedema, which is something that you're likely to get off after you have cancer. There's lots of other ways you can get it, and Laura, I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. And then from there, when we had that size, we sort of said, okay, how many of these people are likely to have lymphedema in their legs? Because you can get it in your arms or in your legs or anywhere in your body. It's common after breast cancer to get it in your arms, and common after some kinds of cancers to get it in your legs. So we sort of looked there for sort of the most conservative, very smallest market size that we could see in the U.S., and that was...
Boo! Small market, boo!
I'm a long-winded talker. This is a very long explanation, and you'll regret asking me this because it'll be so
Investors
boring.
will love these answers.
So boring. This is such a long... So it was 515,000 for
That's the really small
the
number.
very, very small number. And the thing that we always get, so the other thing I will say about
the one VC that listens to this in South Africa just turned off his radio.
So the one thing,
Side note, sorry, we actually had someone from South Africa looking for adjustable shoes.
Oh, really?
On
Oh, yeah, I
Facebook.
saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the very smallest. We don't think that's the true market size, because literally everywhere we go, no matter where we're out in the community, when we say, hey, I'm a founder at this company that makes adjustable shoes for people with unique feet, they're like, oh, my cousin needs those, or my aunt needs those. Or I told this talking about pitching the company to a classmate of mine, and she said, where were you when I was pregnant? I had to waddle into the hospital in my socks because I didn't have anything that would go on my feet. So we know the market size is a lot bigger.
Well, Celia's being very modest. We think that the market size in the U.S. is around maybe upwards or higher than 46 million. Yeah. We think across the worldwide, it's closer to a couple 100 million.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Instinctively, if you say, we're not just trying to solve this particular medical condition, but we're trying to solve the larger problem of people with uncomfortable shoes, swelling in their feet, right, and making sure that we have a product that borders on, medically viable, something that really can help people I think you guys are obviously tapping into something larger. So now, Laura, you have to tell us, unfortunately, about lymphedema.
So lymphedema is kind of a dysfunction of the lymphatic system, which is very newly being studied in the last 10 or 20 years. Most physicians don't really even have much in the way of education on it. So it's sort of, lymphedema is having a renaissance in terms of treatment and recovery types of options. But lymphedema is really just swelling. Whatever causes an incapacitation of the lymphatic system will cause swelling. And it can be very dangerous. It really can be life-threatening if it's not controlled, and it's chronic. It's forever. You don't get out of it. It truly sucks. It's very unpleasant. There's a lot of elders in Alaska that suffer enormously, but it can happen to anybody. It can happen at any age. It's caused by, more than 100 different things.
Okay, so you have an amazing company. It's combating something that's important to people worldwide, and I'm sure it hasn't been a completely easy ride. Like you're coming up on your second anniversary soon. So I think
Oh, that's sweet.
So, that's so cute. But now comes the hard question. Ayla, tell me about like the hardest day you had in the company in Pandere, or the hardest choice you had to make.
I would say the hardest part for me was about at that 6 to 8 month mark, where I was trying to do about 10 different things, and I had to make a choice on what to cut. And that when you're an idea person and when you're creative, you are bombarded with 100 different ideas every single day. What's great is both of my founders here are idea people, and they've both had to make the choice that I had to make, which was to cut some things and to just really prioritize what you're doing. I was telling you earlier before the show, I try to prioritize my life into just a couple different buckets, because if you're doing more than just a couple of things, you're really not doing anything at all. And at the point when it was all hands on deck or just walk away, I decided it was time to commit. So that was tough. And Celia and Laura have definitely seen me grow as far as organization, I hope. So, but hands are on deck right now. That's great.
All right, and let's talk about a little sunshine. Celia, your turn. The best day you had in the company.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think getting our first prototype back was very exciting. So they sent us pictures, and we knew there was a bunch of stuff that wasn't going to work, but I'd been sort of playing like a broken record of, well, we really need to see the shoes. We really need to put them on Laura's feet. We really need to be able to look at them and touch them and feel them and, take them apart and put them back together. And we really need to do that. I've been saying it for what feels like the entire time we've been doing this project, but was probably only about 8 weeks or 10 weeks. But we got them, and Laura said, I got the shoes, and she said, I looked at them, and she's like, there's a lot wrong with them. And I was like, Laura, I know there's going to be we know there's tons of stuff wrong with them. We know there's going to be stuff wrong with them. And we all went over to Laura's house, and we opened them up, and like, just to be able to like actually be like, we made this. This is a thing that we did. And there was a ton of stuff wrong with it, but to be able to put it on Laura's feet and be like, Laura, go put on all of your compression gear and all of your stuff and put it on your feet. And oh my gosh, like, you can get the shoe on your foot with all of this stuff on your leg. And like, that's the first time you've been able to put a closed-toed shoe on a leg with all that bandaging, which was, it was really cool.
Definitely. Yeah, we like to call that our $6,000 shoe.
Yeah.
The funny thing about getting the prototype back is, you think you're going after, we had always had a particular type of the target in the market, which was kind of the top of that bell curve. So these would be people who have moderate swelling, and they're not dealing with severe issues that require them to be hospitalized frequently or bandaged on a daily basis. But bandaging and all the compression gear is something that people have to do, even if you're moderately controlled. And when you are bandaged or you have that stuff on, there's really no other choice other than a post-op shoe. And those are not closed. They're very uncomfortable. They don't wear well. They probably
sponge.
probably don't line up with your other shoe, whatever your shoe is du jour. And what we discovered was that this was the first shoe that I had ever been able to get that level of, all that stuff on my foot into a shoe. So we hit a different part of that bell curve than we were looking for. So that was super cool.
That does sound super cool. So two final questions. Laura Oden will bring you back, CEO. When can we buy this stuff? When is it in the market?
Oh, you want me to go? Oh, God, we hope soon. I'm going to cross my fingers and say out loud that we're hoping to have something that we can actually go live with by November or December.
Congratulations to you guys. We're going to sign off here pretty quick. Before we go, though, it's January 2019. It's your third anniversary. Where's your company? Tell me what your company looks like, Ayla.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. Because as much as Celia is conservative, I am not. So by January of 2019, we hope we will have put 16,000 shoes on people's feet.
January of what?
2019.
2019.
2019, yeah.
Yep.
Piece of cake.
Yep.
Piece of cake.
That's our goal. We are going to have given those people back their lives and back their mobility.
Celia, you're not off the hook. January 2019, what does your company look like?
I think we're in prototyping, research, and design for a ton of new shoes. I think we're looking at expanding to children or to men's shoes or to doing more interesting women's shoes. I think that I don't think it's ever going to stop. I don't think it's ever going to stop. I'll leave it there.
Well, by that point, I hope that we're really building out our infrastructure in Anchorage and starting to hire local people. And we know we have some internship plans, and we plan to work with high schools and college and try to get people onboarded early into this entrepreneurship direction. Plus, we have a deep consideration for the environment and doing good business, good works, good social responsibility. So hopefully by 2019, we can have a lot of those pieces starting and in place, and maybe even moving forward by then.
Okay, and don't go anywhere. Laura, final question. Where can people find you online?
PandereShoes.com. PANDERE shoes.com.
All right, that is it. 49SAF Pod signing out, where Celia Crossett, Ayla Rogers, and Laura Oden, the three co-founders of Pandere Shoes, have each eaten one wintergreen fresh mint. Signing off from the 8th floor of City Hall, where I will have an inspired debate about the songs of Demi Lovato with Laura Oden, who is also a musician. This is the 49SAF Pod.